Monty's big benefits to implementing Global Shop: number one, it's helped them manage their $1 million plus inventory and all their blanket orders. Number two, they're big users of auto purchasing, so they know what to order and when. And again, if you're using auto purchasing, that means you got really good inventory control. So good job, Monty. Third thing, they're big users of APS and the scheduling system. Fourth, they've done a great job of implementing the move tickets on the shop floor. It talks about it in the article. This has helped them eliminate missed operations. It's helped them get parts to the right place at the right time. And then, Andy, I don't know if you remember making these comments, but Mike Melzer quotes you all the time. The move tickets have helped us as a company schedule better. Our piece counts are so much more accurate because the operator gets a physical receipt of what he told Global Shop. So really good quote on the move tickets. They've also done a nice job customizing existing GS reports to fit their business in Crystal. And then I think finally they have a great quote at the end of the article. In business today, the company that gives the quicker answer is often the company that gets the order. And Global Shop helps them to do this with the two most popular screens, supply and demand and CRM. So a very big thank you to Monty for being such a great customer, to being an always continuing to improve customer, and a huge friend of Global Shop. Thank you to all their GSS team. I can't name everybody. They have 37 people on their Global Shop team, and especially to Andy, Chris, Nate, Brian, and of course, Mr. Gavin. Thank you so much. You guys are an awesome customer. All right, let's flip it to Langley. You guys have a great weekend. We'll be manning the chat, and that's it. Thank you. Have a great weekend.
Perfect. Thank you, Dusty. If you guys can let me know that that you can hear me on my end in the chat, we'll go ahead and get started. There is a link for the documents in the chat window. Otherwise, you can certainly go to the handout section. We're going to be trying to put everything in handouts that we can. So as Dusty said, and let me go ahead and get our slides going, we are going to be talking about quoting, two ways to quote in the system, as well as, oops, I have the wrong slide open. We won't talk about RFQs and routers right now. That won't get us very far. We are going to talk about quoting and work centers. So let me open that for you. That is in your zip file. There we go, quotes and work centers. Let me double check really quickly that I put the right file. Yep, it's in your zip file. I got the right one. So let's see, why is it blocked? There we go. Okay. I don't know what's happening. My PowerPoints have gone crazy today. So we are doing quote to cash this series, so we're on our third class, and I know a lot of you are still in the running to get your name in the iPad drawing. So if you attend all of the classes, you do get submitted for a chance to win that iPad. So we're on week 3. We did cover vendor quotes. That video is linked. You can watch that if you missed it. Next week, we're going to be covering sales orders, and then Rhonda's going to be doing bill of materials and integrations, because I will be seeing some of you in person, but we'll get to that. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. So 2 ways to basic quote, some work center basic setups, and then some really cool Gab projects along the way. We'll sprinkle that in, as well as the true view, which is pretty neat. I'm really excited about that. Okay, so a quick quote. In Global Shop, we have 2 ways to quote, and we'll look at both of them in the system, but just in general before we get going. A quick quote is ideal if it's something you already know what the price is going to be. Maybe it's something you sell all the time. Maybe it's a standard item. An inventory item that you have constantly sold. Or if you're using a third system to quote. So if you're not using Global Shop, if you are doing something, maybe it's in a Gab spreadsheet or an upload custom projects. Ideally, everything would be in Global Shop because you have that for a reference, but maybe you're still quoting externally. If you know what the price is going to be, you can go to Estimating, Routing, File, Quick Quote, and go to New. You have options whether it auto numbers or manual numbers. I'm going to pick my customer. And I have a bunch of Gab stuff turned on, so we'll get some pop-ups, but I'll show you all that fun stuff in a minute. So here's basically my quote header. I can put a reference if they called. At this point, you know, they might not have anything. They wouldn't have a PO because we don't have a quote yet for them. But I will put just they called 918. You have the option to fill out as many or as few of these fields as you need. For example, my sales rep defaulted. A lot of these fields will flow through when you win a quote and it becomes a sales order. So it is nice as soon as you have this information to kind of put in as much as you do know, just to save yourself some time down the road. But again, totally optional. You do have some standard user fields if you need additional information. If you want to put freight costs at the time in here, clicking the RFQ will give you access to the request for quote if that's where this quote came from, which we talked about requests for quotes already. There are some comments, some additional addresses if it's going to go to a different address. Let me see. I'm going to go ahead and pick a contact. So John Doe is the guy who called about this. Those contacts can be set up on your customer master or from within CRM. So I'm actually just going to go straight into lines. And I'm going to pick or type a part. Now, once I tab through, a couple things are going to happen, and the same thing would have happened if I had chosen from the browser this particular part. It pulled in everything my inventory record knows about my total assembly. It pulled in some links, so if I have document control links loaded, I have access to those. So here are all my inspection and drawings, all of those are there. If there was a customer part cross-reference, it would tell me what the customer part name is. I could also have used this magnifying glass to look up the customer part number. Again, depending on what they're telling me when they call or what they have in their email, it might be easier to type in their part number. By default, this price came straight from inventory. It would tell you in this description if it came from another pricing module. Maybe it was a discounted price, a quantity price, etc. You are able to overwrite this. So I can say up to 50 because they want them rushed, and you'll notice that description changes to a quoted price. Again, we're in quick quote because we know what price we want, but if you want to take a peek over here on the right, there's quote history. And in the quote history, you have three different options. You can say, show me this part for this customer. So here are all the times in the past I have quoted total assemblies for this particular customer. And here's the unit cost. So you'll notice my $250 is pretty extreme. You also have the option, all parts at this customer. So there's my total, there's my stock. And this can help you because even though they're different parts, it's showing me my my gross profit margin. So I can see, right, well, I usually make about 30%. Okay, fine. You also have this part at all customers. Now in my system, they all happen to be the same customer, but if you had other customers who had quoted this part, you would see, again, all of the costs, and it does give you the quantities, maybe if you're giving people a volume discount. So it looks like based on that history, I need to change this closer to $35. Hopefully you guys don't have price swings that big, but in this case, it's really nice to see that quote history. You can also see sales history. So these are my quotes, but maybe not all of those had turned into an order. But I can click on sales history and say, okay, we've actually sold this item, again, same options. This part, this customer, all parts for this customer, this part at all customers, and then an additional, just the last sale. Because maybe I've sold this to them, you can put cutoff dates, but maybe I've sold this to them over the past 5 years, and I really only want to see the most current, the most recent sale. If you have particular items, especially depending on what raw material they use, that have swings in the pricing, it's nice to just look at that last sale so you're not looking at a price that's 2 years old. So those are good, even just checkpoints to make sure that whatever you're quoting is fairly in line. You want to be sure to put a weight, or excuse me, a quantity. The weight would fill in from the table. I do know we had some people ask about the customer part number. I don't have a cross-reference. Well, here we go. I could pick, they also call it this number. And all that does is that populates your global shop part when you chose the customer part number. So you'll see that, oops, let me close my email. So whatever way is easiest for you to look up. Let me go back to my total assembly. I suppose it doesn't matter. But there's my 5. It went back to inventory. I'll make it quoted. So you do have some user fields if you need to use user fields. Again, all of these fields are available to you. They are not by any means required, but depending on how your processes work, you might use some of these user fields to make indications for or text that you can place. This text will show up and can show up further when it gets won to the sales order. You have access to your extra descriptions of your inventory, any text codes that you have set up. Maybe if you have a default line that says, thanks for quoting, etc., you can add those as well. Notes or internal notes, if you want to put notes about this quote, those are available. So then we would save this line. And line 2, I'm going to pick a different part and show you another option. If you wanted to send this quote for different quantities, so let's say they wanted one of these. I don't have an inventory price set up on here, so I have to pick one. I can over here click copy line. Now when I copy line, it asks me, do I want to increment the line number, meaning it would make line 3, or do I want to increment the line suffix? That is going to give me the option to quote additional quantities. So 5 would be 200, 10 would be 190, and I'll just make one more. That way you have a single line item per part, but you have multiple quantities quoted. So there you go. They're all my, and you'll notice, so there's line 1 is my total assembly, 2.0 or 2.0 is my EDI part 2, but then I have different suffixes that indicate that there are different quantities. If I print this, I'll show you what that looks like. I've got, again, some Gab projects turned on, so I'm getting some extra pop-ups, but let me open that, or I'll print that quote so you see what it looks like. And I did see a comment, there is only a PowerPoint in the zip files. All the Gab projects we're going to look at today are on ARC, so you didn't need them. So just a PowerPoint today. Yeah, there are lots of extra goodies. Okay, so I'm printing this quote, and again, my line 2, you'll notice, has the different quantities. So it's not a separate line, they're just all kind of grouped together in line 2. You do have the option to extend the pricing if you had those multiple quantities, so that's optional to you. And again, I picked that additional description, that text code, so that was printed, and I picked it on the line. So that's how you would quote if you know what what you're quoting or what the price would be. But maybe it's something brand new that you haven't worked with before, that you haven't priced out. Or maybe it's something that you know a lot of the component costs have changed and you just want to revisit the cost of the manufacturing. If you go to Estimating Routers, Open, you can pull up the router for the particular item you wish to quote. Again, I have access to, I have router links, I have part links. We did cover routers recently, so if you want to watch that video, you can go there. I'm just going to dig straight into my lines, and down at the bottom, I'm going to click on Pricing. What that's going to do is going to bring me to a screen with a markup section up here at the top. I basically have three components to this particular router. I have labor costs, material costs, and outside costs. My cost bucket, I always want to leave at 1 because that's going to show me actual costs. I then have 4 markup buckets or fields, however you want to think about it, that you can control the particular markups under Estimating Routing, File, Markup Percentages. It's up to you to determine what goes in these fields. I would recommend that cost and billing always be set to 1. Again, just so you can see your true costs, but then you can switch. You know, they don't have to be the same. Mine happen to be the same all the way down. But for markup 2, I could put material at, you know, twice the cost. So it's up to you. This grid is totally flexible. There is a custom option available that I have turned on to change my markup for on the fly. So if I, you know, in the back of my head, I'm thinking, wow, they're going to need to rush this material. I'm going to make this material markup more expensive. I can change that and then just hit refresh. And you'll notice if you did really quickly, these prices adjusted. So I'll make it 5%. And if you guys want to watch this markup for this price for column, when I hit refresh, it's just going to keep increasing. So that is available to you to do that on the fly. Again, there is an option to do that. We did have an option about, or a question about essentially discount or a markdown or a negative. You can put a markdown. So again, keeping your eye on price 4. If I say they want a 5.5% markdown, I can put that negative and watch these guys right here. They're going to be reduced. So definitely can, you can put negatives. I'm going to put that back at 2.5 and refresh. So what this screen is basically telling you, it has 2 sections for you. It has a pricing section and a costing section. And as far as Global Shop is concerned, whenever you see the word cost, cost is an internal value, is a within your company cost of the particular item. Price is an external value. What is the customer, your customer, going to pay? So at a quantity of 10, and cost references your cost down below. Here are my costs based on the labor, the material, the outside, all the different items I have in my router. My price 1 is listed with my percentage margin, price 2 with margin 3, etc., and then my billing rate. The billing rate is going to, for your, we'll look at billing rates, and those can be set actually on the work centers themselves as well. But basically, it's just showing you, right, at these different markups, this is what the pricing is looking like as compared to my cost, right? So everything, I'm good, I'm above cost, I'm not paying somebody to take my merchandise, right? So down below, it gives you a breakdown. How did we get to those costs? It's going to also show you your list price. So this is on your inventory, what that list price is. And here's the breakdown of my costs. My material costs, any outside costs, labor, the hours involved, and then that overhead split out, the markup percent, and then the margin dollars. And you do see it's just a little bit off the screen over there. It's not much. The margin percent as well. Now, some of these are going to determine, so whether I make 10, 50, 100, or 1, my costs might change, and my costs are varying because of setup. If you have no setup on your material, your labor, or any of your lines on your router, then the costs are going to be the same across all of the different quantities. But it's nice to include 1 so you know this is the cost that it takes me to make just a single inventory item. So again, this is a good review. You can print this if you want to kind of look at it, analyze it more. Otherwise, you can hit quote. Now again, your quote numbering based on your options. There is the quote number that it picked because that's just next in line. If I wanted to add this to an existing quote, I simply type the quote number in this field right here. That way I can include it as an additional line item to something that maybe I've quick quoted the rest of. I can give it a due date. I will say 10/15. Again, it's going to show me those markups that I'm using, and then it asks me to pick a price or billing. What price code do I want this at? I'm going to pick price 4 because I put that rush material in there for them. Then when I hit OK, I come to a screen with all the different quantities that I have on my router. Now maybe they would never buy 1 and they probably won't buy 100, but I'll show them 10 and 50 just because they might like the, the $2 and change discount that they get, or less than $2 discount that they get. So I can hit OK. You do have the option vary rates, and I'm only going to pull this up because we're talking about work centers here in a second. You can see here the rate per hour on my engineering is 67. Maybe because, again, they're going to rush it, I'm going to charge them $90 an hour on my engineering work center. And it will show you the old and the new pricing based on your changes. Also, the saw is 38 an hour. I'm going to charge them 50. So that's just a way, again, to do a specific markup on particular machines within this one particular quote. So I'll hit OK with the 10 or the 50. Now, right now, nothing has happened. Until I hit save or until I print it, this quote is gray because it's kind of in limbo. But let me click save and now it's bright blue. That means it exists. I can print it. I can go to my description again and add description. I can put additional charges. Maybe I do want to add freight because if you remember, we didn't see that in the routing. I can add a message or, oops, I can double click. Let me see what buttons I've got popped up here. You can double click. Oh my goodness, I've pulled something up in front of it. You can double click this bright turquoise box, and that is going to launch the quote itself so that you can then do anything that we were doing on the quote header. So if you wanted to, put additional notes, pick the salesperson, etc., you could certainly do that. You could certainly do that from the estimate router screen. So again, it's just a little bit different as far as what you are needing and what information you have, which process you're going to be quoting from. So if I were to go look at, and now I can go to Quick Quote Open and access that total assembly quote for, I believe it was 5 and 10. Let's go peek. So there's that 918 one that I first did. Here's the next one, 1739. And I can go to my lines. And there's my total assembly, 10 and 50. So that's, again, another way, depending on how you process your quotes. So let's go back to our slides. I think I've covered all of this, but I'm just going to go through quoting from a router. Again, more accurate, shows you all those cool screenshots. So some QuoteGen projects. There is a project on ARC. It's project 496. And let me actually go open. I should have left my quick quote open. If you need to email your quotes in a way, oh, see, I don't even remember my quote number. If you would like to email, and I'll pick the first one that we did. Down here at the bottom, I have an email button. And it's going to let me choose from my range of contacts. So these are all the contacts at my customer, or I can manually pick one. Now you'll notice it's defaulted global shop quote 1738, so it auto-populated this number over here, and then it put a body in the message. I'm going to hit send. It's going to close out that window, and it's going to send that, but while I am waiting for that to send, because it takes just a couple seconds to process through the through our email server, I want to show you where that default file is that will allow me to put some wildcards in. So if I go to my global plugins folder and I go to Gab Gas, and let me go find, there's a quote underscore PDF. This is where you would auto-populate the subject. You can type whatever you want. Anything before the asterisk, exclamation point, asterisk, is going to be in the subject. So global shop quote, this is your wildcard for your quote number. And I can come in here and put, oops, you can save this, and this becomes your template for the email. So when I click on email, there you go. Thanks for watching Friday Features. So, and again, that wildcard came from the project. So that is available for you for free on ARC Project 496. Now ARC is this red little icon. It defaults under our admin and custom, but you have to be an administrator user. So all you've got to do is click on ARC. And I gave you the number, so you can just type that number in, and there's email quote PDF. So you click on it, click install. You're good to go. The only, and I wouldn't even call it complication, I'd call it requirement, is courier has to be running. So if you're not already running emails with any other part of Global Shop, courier has to be set up. This is what's going to route the email. Then when you open your inbox, which let me get messages. Oh, wait just a second. Sometimes it takes, that's why, there it goes, 1738. So again, this is the first one. I didn't add the Friday feature, and there's a PDF. The PDF is a beautiful, perfect copy of exactly what I printed out earlier with all those broken down. So it's the Crystal Report PDF. So it's nice, it's beautiful, it's exactly, it would have your logo. You can, you know, if you have any terms or anything that they need to sign in addition, you could just make the report include those pages and you're good to go. You're golden. Okay. So that's one option, emailing quotes. Another option, and I don't know, did I leave? I should just leave this quote open. Down here on script 3, I have added additional user fields. And this, if you wanted to, I noticed somebody asked about I've got my email open still. Somebody asked about revisions on a quote. You certainly could use we do have a quote revision option, but we also have these script 3 can launch 50 different quote user fields. Those user fields could certainly store revision information. Now you'll notice I have all of these fields. You are allowed to create and then maintain the titles as well as the values of those different user fields. It can be on the header, or you also have user fields on the lines. So you'll see my script 3 is active. So here's, is it a new quote? Yes. Have I confirmed pricing? Yes. Where did I get my pricing? It was a price match quote. And I can save those. So those, again, it's a GAB project that exists out on ARC. It's project 187. It does require you to be on 2010-3 or higher. Hopefully all of you are on 2010 or 2010-3 or higher. And again, you get to maintain all of that. Let's see where I put those options. They're my extra field labels. So I can label it. So if you wanted to use these, you could say, okay, I'm going to put, oops, let me pick my header. And again, this is just based on the questions you guys are posing right now, but you could make it whatever you want to. Quote revision number. So I could save that. So I can put the labels, and then I also have selections. So there's my header, which one, revision, and you've got, I mean, multiple options. So I could just, et cetera, et cetera. So you label it, you pick the options. Let me pop back into my quote. Now that was on the header, so let me get back to the header. And again, these are all free. These all came from a customer at one time, said, hey, I want to be able to do something. So here's revision 2. I can save it. So really nice, pretty slick, pretty easy, readily available. Okay, we did have a question adding terms and conditions. You can just edit your report itself to include a page with terms and conditions, or there are some GAB projects to automatically include other reports. And when you are doing a quick quote, if you have the quantity listed on the quote, it's going to be included on the printout in the email. The only way to deselect or not include them is to remove them from the quote. It's not like the router where you have a checkbox of what gets included or not. So if it's on the quick quote, it's going to show up in the print or the email. So then we also have, again, on ARC, quote. Now this is kind of an all-encompassing approval system. It's project 335. It includes quote approval, order approval, and purchasing approval. You can set up all or one of them, or however you want to have that set. But basically, under system support, you have the option to decide who gets, who has the value limits within. So I'm going to system support file originator maintenance. And again, when you add this from Global Shop, or excuse me, from ARC, it's going to be available for you. So when I choose Global Shop, supervisor is set to approve anything over 500. So now I will really quickly, if I look at quote approval, which is estimating transactions, supervisor has nothing to approve. But I'm going to log in really quickly and make a quote for over $500 by a Global Shop. And this poor guy doesn't have much access, but I'm going to make a new quick quote for over $500. And you do, if you are an approver, it's going to pop up when you go into quoting just to make sure that you're not missing something that needs to be quoted, or that needs to be approved, excuse me. If I can type today. I've noticed over the years that there are different people. There are typers and there are pickers. I tend to be a typer, so you see me doing that. This person doesn't have link access, so their link is red. So again, if you have links, just be sure that you approve them or give permission. So here's an expensive quote, a $2,000 quote that I just made. I will save that. Now, when I go back to the supervisor, if I go look at quote approval under the supervisor who was set up as his approver, there's my quote. I can view it, I can approve it. You do have an approve all, maybe if I have 10 things in here instead of going one at a time. Otherwise, I can hit view, check it out, see what it is, look into it more. You also have an approve button down here at the bottom. Again, just to make your life, should have gone over here. Just to make your life easier, there's also an approval button down at the bottom if you have permission. So that's really nice. Again, if you need approvals, that's out on ARC, and that is going to work with 335 order, quotes, and purchase orders. So those are 3 pretty easy, pretty slick gab projects regarding quotes. So let's switch gears really quickly to work centers, and I'll talk a little quickly. There's less to work centers, but that doesn't mean they're any less important. They are super important. So defining a work center can be a labor center that you are using to build your estimate. Also for scheduling. It can be a physical machine, so a saw, a lathe, a CNC machine, whatever you want to have available. It can also be a person or a task, so your shipping department, inspection, quality, office, things like that nature. It can also be a group of machines or people who perform the same tasks. So again, your shipping department, your work center would be everybody who does shipping. You could also have a group of machines be a work center. We're going to look though, if you have a group, I recommend more doing work groups, and we'll get into that because that's going to allow you some flexibility in your scheduling, and it's going to make your life easier when you are making routers and creating work orders. I also like to tell people, if you're thinking about work centers, you are using work centers as those lines on your estimates. So think about if it is something you want somebody to clock in on and log time against and schedule against. If it's a process or something that takes, 2 minutes to finish and it's not expensive and it doesn't ever happen again, do you want somebody to take the time to log on and include it in estimating? And include all the costing? Maybe yes, maybe no. Just something to keep in mind that you will be using these for logging in. If you're in 2015 too, these options are not available to you, but for the rest of you, I would hope that you have the option checked to use APS version 3. And that, again, like I said, that's mandatory. It just gives you a whole host of other options to use for your scheduling system. Also, there's a checkbox over here, use finite scheduling. We're going to talk about finite in a bit more detail, but without that option on, you don't even have those choices to make within the Work Center setup. Also, for scheduling purposes, your day is available. If you work Monday through Friday, you can check, hey, I receive material Monday through Friday. I can send it outside Monday through Friday, and I can ship Monday through Friday. If you don't have any shipping on Fridays, let's say, you would uncheck that box. Again, it's just giving your overall company schedule as far as planning for those material receipts, those shipping transactions, and then those outside processes. So work center information. Help is really good. Help is going to talk about every single field on the screen. I am not going to talk about every single field on the screen. There are some key fields though to look at, and let's see, I'm going to just go straight back into Global Shop, and work centers are found under estimating routing, file, work center maintenance. I'm going to open one. Actually, well, we'll open one. So I've picked my saw. You can attach links to a work center. Maybe those are maintenance instructions, maybe it's calibration instructions, cleaning instructions, maybe there's warranty information you want to attach, or you know, whatever you might want to attach to a work center. You do have a link, and that will show up in the router and on the job. So this department, there's sometimes confusion. This does not tie back into payroll. This is not your payroll department. This is just for scheduling purposes. Within APS, you can look by department view, but this does not go back to your general ledger and your employee time or employee related at all. So that's kind of a confusing thing. I'm going to come talk about rates. I'm going to hit that pretty hard here in a few minutes. But down at the bottom, number of machines, this is where I said I highly recommend doing just one machine per work center and then grouping those all together in a work group for scheduling purposes, even if you're running infinite machines. It just gives you the flexibility in the future to tighten up your schedule and put additional constraints on if you choose to. So I like to have you guys all prepped for success, because if you have to only set stuff up once instead of redoing everything, that'll make your lives easier. The scheduling percent modifier is basically your realistic percentage of time the machine is going to be running. And I'm not sure, let's see if I didn't put a slide in here about it. But basically, if you say 100% of the time, the system is going to say whatever hours you have told me this saw can work, it can be running, which is not true, because whoever is running the machine is going to be legally entitled to breaks. They're probably going to take lunch. If you work multiple shifts, there's going to be a shift change. There's going to be time at the beginning of the day where, you know, it takes them a couple minutes to clock in to get on the job. Or if somebody needs to go ask, you know, hey, what do I do next? So this is kind of that realism factor. You are welcome to do, you know, the to-the-minute math of my 2 15-minute breaks and a half-hour lunch, so I've got an hour of non-productive time. But then I remind people of the waiting in line factor and the coffee factor and all these other things. So we see usually between 80 and 85%. That's just so you are not unrealistically loading your machines. Then over here, as far as how you load your machines, we have 3 different types. We have infinite, rules-based, which is finite, and then first in, first out. I will say most people, if they do finite, are going to use and I've changed it so it's freaked out on me. Let me pick this again. Rules-based is the most common. So let's go back to our slides because I put some good information in here. So the differences between infinite versus finite. So infinite is going to schedule the jobs regardless of their capacity. So your job is going to be more than not based on your estimate, which has a sequence of events that needs to occur. I have this labor followed by this labor and an outside step, and I have material that has lead times, etc. It will lay it in the schedule based on, you know, those times of the different sequences. It does not look at capacity if it's infinite. So that says whenever, I don't care, put it where it needs to fall. The nice thing about an infinite work center is you can easily adjust the schedule. So that's not a problem. There also is some flexibility in hours. So maybe if you're constantly adding overtime, letting people run long, if you tend to run a more flexible shop as far as capacity, then it's nice. It's going to put the job wherever it needs to land, even if you might have 300% load. It's also very forgiving when your estimates are not accurate. So if you have the bad run times, maybe you haven't been, if you have a finite schedule and you backward schedule it 3 years because all of your other jobs are not accurate with their routers and their times. So infinite is more forgiving. We recommend people start off infinite until they tighten up their estimates, until they tighten up their lead times, their run times. All of that information can really destroy your schedule. But no, there are some cons to it. You can't increase your capacity because you're at whatever it needs. You do need to manually do lots of tracking and scheduling and reviewing the jobs, because you are saying, if I have 8 hours in a day, I can schedule 30 hours worth of work, which is not realistic. So you have to manually make sure, hey, let's move those, let's check them, let's see what due dates are accurate, what due dates are not. You have to, the resources have to be precise. Current production can be consistently overloaded. If you need a true accurate due date, or a when can I truly get this done, you can't do that with infinite because it allows everything to go over. We do, however, infinitely allow people type work centers, so shipping, assembly, etc., to be infinite, because the example I like to give is if you have an 8-hour shift, only 8 hours, you cannot make a saw cut faster in 8 hours. It's going to cut however much it can cut. But you can make shipping ship extra in 8 hours. Because of the human factor, they can work a little bit faster, they can rush, they can hurry. You can pull somebody out from the office to tape up boxes, right? So your capacity swings on a people-based work center tend to lend itself towards being infinite, because you do have some flexibility. So that's infinite. Finite is going to cap it out at 100% capacity. So if I have a 10-hour day and I put an 80% modifier, it's only going to load 8 hours worth of work on that machine. Rules-based, like I said, is the most common. Rules-based means the system will fit that 100% capacity based on whether a job is locked, the priority on the header, the due date, the order date, and then finally the work order number itself. So we will use that order to decide what takes precedence and fill up your capacity. Pros, it's more realistic. You can get accurate due dates. You can get know exactly when something could be due, should be done to get it finished at the right time. Some of the cons, again, if you have bad estimates and you're putting all these constraints on, you're going to make a mess in scheduling. You also can't edit capacity very easily on the fly. It can be done. You can set up exception calendars in scheduling. It does take some effort up front to set it up, because you do need to know the capacity constraints for it. And again, manually adjusting the schedule is difficult because you are using the system to do all of the logic. Again, like a lot of stuff in Global Shop, it's garbage in, garbage out. So if you have everything under control, finite is the way to go. If you're just starting out, or having any issues with the shop, logging in, logging off, Infinite is kind of your easy first step into scheduling. So those are the different types. We also, again, here's a quick example. I'll skip over that. Let's go talk about pricing or costing. So costing is internal. So these are all costs. These are your values. It's easiest to start in the middle and work our way left. Fixed overhead is going to be your fixed overhead. Help gives a great breakdown of how that cost should be included. Things like salary, building, rent, utilities, equipment fees, all this other overhead. You determine an hour rate that gets applied to this machine. Some people allocate it evenly across all their work centers. Some people allocate it based on percentages of their most used work centers. Others do it based on the size or the floor space of their work centers. So lots of different options. Help has a great process of how to determine that. So in this case, I have a $5 fixed overhead. To that, I add my variable overhead. So I have said there's $2 worth of variable overhead. Variable overhead, employee benefits, insurance, etc. Things that would vary based on when this machine is running. So there's $2 of variable. To my overhead, I would add the direct labor cost. So in this example, I have a $13 an hour employee, and this cost is what showed up when we were doing our quoting. The cost, again, my internal cost of this machine, I'm estimating to be $20. Now that $13, it's up to you whether you choose the average employee who would work on this. Maybe the average of all the people running the saw is 13. Otherwise, I could choose my most expensive employee, and that would be sure I would always get an X dollar margin if the person working at made less money. Now, depending on how you have your options set, it will choose some different things when you actually run it, but for estimating, this is the cost, which is why we set that to 1 in our markup, so it's going to use $20. And then you have a bill rate. It's going to use $75 for billing in quoting when I use the saw work center. Now for your actuals, there is an option under standard manufacturing how the system decides what to charge for actual dollars. The 0 is the most common, but again, Help is going to break all of that down as far as actual costing. It's just important that you have these values filled in on the work center because they will be used for costing in one way or another. The work center calendar tells the system when this machine is available for scheduling. You just click the calendar button, what time it starts, how long it goes, the number of machines needs to match whatever you put on the main work center screen back here. And then when you save that, your kind of sample day, we'll save it to Monday, and then I can copy. So I can do Monday to Tuesday, copy. Tuesday to Saturday, copy. You are totally flexible as far as which days get copied to which other days. So that is what tells the system when this machine's available. If you run 2 shifts, you do not need a second break. That break will be accounted for in your percentage modifier. So this is continuous run. If you have 2 shifts and there's an operator change, maybe just adjust your percentage modifier down to 80 instead of 85. So this should be, again, the continuous runtime of the machines. This is standard runtime. Within APS, you have an exception calendar for when there's a holiday, if you want to add overtime on a Saturday, if the machine is down for repairs. You can do all of that within APS. This is your standard normal work center setup. Okay. So we're getting, again, here's some shifts with overnights. Work groups are a way to group like machines so that when you are estimating, you can pick the group of machines. In this example, instead of picking saw 1 versus saw 2, I pick a saw group, and the machine, if they are finite and rules-based, will balance the load. They're a load balancing group across those two machines up to the 100% capacity. So again, that's estimating routing file work group, so they can choose the group rather than the particular machine. The cost gets pulled from whatever you have selected as your prototype work center. You can set up attributes if you have machines that are fairly similar, but maybe one saw can only run small jobs and another is required for larger pieces of material to cut. You can set up attributes, certainly available. We won't get into those today though, but if you email scheduling, we can get you set up with somebody to work over attributes. Okay, again, finite work centers, because if everything's infinite, there's never a need to switch it to the next work center. So some work center projects. So one that I'm super excited about because I learned about it recently is copying your work center calendars. So let's say you add a second shift, but you have 80 work centers. Instead of going manually one by one and adding that additional time to the work centers, you can just load ARC project 1245. And that is going to add an option, and let me close my work center. Let me save my work center. Under estimating routing file, it has added copy work center calendars. I hope some of you are as excited as I was to see this. I can pick a source work center. So now that I've edited saw 1, I could pick saw 1, and I want that to either update all my other work centers, or I just want saw. I also run the benches and deburring, so I can just use those for and copy. Really slick, really easy. If you add, maybe you've only ever worked a half day Friday and now you're working full day, or like I said, if you add a second shift, these are not your exceptions. This is not a, oh, there's a holiday, let me turn Friday. No, this is consistent change to your work center hours. Or maybe, in the summer if you work different hours seasonally, stuff like that. So now our True View shop display. True View is really neat. And part of it is difficult because it's anything you want, which I know some people, it's hard to grasp your head around. Anything you want to view on your shop floor can be created into an easy HTML form. It just requires a VT. It does not take a global shop license. It does not take a pervasive license. You can display a job list, a dispatch list. You can display announcements, maybe accurate up-to-the-minute live performance on employee productivity. So what percentage they are, to encourage better efficiencies. You control how quickly the data scrolls and how often it switches. You can make it toggle between different information. So if you wanted to do an announcement and then switch over to a job list. These are just HTML files, so they can be, the idea is that they be loaded on, a television screen out in the shop floor. And it's just going to simply list, and let me go pick, you can have it, these are by job, so here's my assembly work center. So I have all of those. These happen to be all hot priority jobs, but it's just a nice visual indicator out on the shop floor. And we have a great customer, Cast Nylons, who has a bunch of these out there. So here they have, each machine has their dispatch list. So there's the rotoplaner, there's the plate casting. Here it is, just right there at the employee's fingertips. It's instant information because I don't know for a lot of you, but we've heard, you know, by the time the ink dries on what you printed, something has changed, right? So this is direct from Global Shop, instant data. Again, whatever information you want. These are machine dispatch lists. She just is adding a shipping dispatch that every time it ships, it falls off the list. So everything shipped out that day is going to be just on a big giant TV right in front of her shipping. Again, all that takes is, and I called it VT, a virtual training session. So just a one-on-one session to get that set up. Again, whatever information you want, and it would be branded to you, right? They're cast nylons. You'd have your logo. It looks really slick if you're bringing in prospective customers through your shop and say, hey guys, your jobs could be right here, right? High priority. So just really awesome, pretty slick, whatever you are interested in. They are called TrueView. So if you email scheduling and ask to get a session on TrueView, that's what they would want. Okay, and to get that set up, you would schedule a VT to set up the TrueView. And I did see, I think there is. Silas put TrueView project 1441 is a default. So if you go into ARC, go 1441, TrueView work in process by Work Center. So you can install that from here. If you, and on ARC, all of our newer projects, you can view the PDV just to kind of see what it looks like if you are curious. So you could certainly load that and see it. But yeah, any additions that you want, pretty cool, pretty neat, and very custom with whatever you would want. So you could certainly load that from ARC and give it a try. Now, again, next week we're covering sales orders, but the week after, Rhonda is going to be covering bill of materials and integrations because I'm going to be hitting the road with Dusty and Mike. So if you guys are in the Baltimore, Boston, or Cleveland area, would love to see you guys at our Power Up events. And that can be used, you can use the same link to click to get or email scheduling. But we do have, these are just some additional resources because that's all I had today about quotes and work centers. But we do always have our on-site consulting, virtual consulting, an ROI visit for an in-depth view of how you're currently using the system and what you might be able to use to make it more efficient and effective for your production. And then coming up, we do have advanced user training. It might be tough, but I bet you we could fit a couple more of you into that KPI class. Those are key performance indicators to help manage and analyze your business. And then we have an October class about inventory accounting, and then one final one in November about manufacturing with inventory control. And those are all taught in Texas at our headquarters in the Woodlands. You can click the link there, or you can always email scheduling for any additional training that that we've talked about. The download, again, they just reposted the link, so if you want to see that information, you can get it there. Otherwise, you guys have a great rest of your day and a great weekend, and we'll see you next week for sales orders.